everyone. Welcome to the PFF Betting Podcast. I am your host, Kendall Valenzuela. Joined with me, as always, PFF Senior Data Scientist, Ben Brown. And we have a special guest. It's last week, the finale, we had to bring in the big guns. It is Andrew Erickson. We are breaking down the final week of the regular season of the NFL. Got tons of props, parlays, even anytime touchdown scores. So let's get into it.
Football fans, I'm sure we all love an action-packed, high-scoring NFL game, but with the latest no-brainer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, you'll be a winner once a single point is scored. New customers who bet just $1 on any team to score can win $100 in free bets. It's just that simple. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still get in on the NFL action. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Bet $1 on any team to score and win $100 in free bets if they score. You score with promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Andrew, I feel like you have to just at first, tell everyone listening about yourself. This is the first time you and I are officially meeting via our recording. So I feel like you got to just break down what you do at PFF first.
Yeah, so I go by the props prophet over on the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast that I've been given the moniker by our own Ian Hartitz. But yeah, that's what I do. I'm on the fantasy side here at PFF, doing the rankings, the matchups, all that types of good stuff. But, season-long fantasy is dead now. It's over. I know that we have some crazy people. I get questions about Week 18. I'm like, guys, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to play. I can't tell you to start him. What do you want me to do? I'm looking at these player props. That's what I'm into right now. So that's why I'm making the change. I'm jumping ship off the PFF Fantasy Pod onto the Betting Pod to come at you with some props. So I'm looking forward to it.
I love it. Guys, Andrew is the guy that I incessantly just bugged the whole season. So you have to go follow him. He's a great follow on Twitter. If you're lucky enough, I'm not going to send it out, but if you're lucky enough to have his phone number or his Slack, you can always message him any random questions this poor guy had to go through. But let's get started then. I think I want to start with the Sunday night football game because that is a game for us. Week 18 is weird for props and everything, right? Because like you said, Andrew, you don't really know who's playing with some games. So we're going to start with the Sunday night football game. The Chargers cannot lose and make the playoffs while the Raiders kind of have an out. They can clinch if both the Colts and the Steelers lose. Andrew, I know you like Derek Carr to start off. You like him going under 265.5. I think that's still where it's at right now, passing yards. So why don't you break that one down for us?
Yeah, Derek Carr, this Raiders offense has basically not been the same since they lost Henry Ruggs. And, you look at Derek Carr's season-long stats in terms of passing yards, he's up there in the top with the rest of the quarterbacks, but it's just been falling off significantly since they lost Ruggs and since they've lost Waller in recent weeks. So, he hasn't gone over 265.5 passing yards in his last 5 games. He's only done it twice since week 8. His season-long passing yards was against the Chargers in week 4, which he had Ruggs in that game. He had Darren Waller in that game. And the Chargers are allowing just 237 passing yards per game this season. So I just don't see the upside of Derek Carr. I know that his season-long numbers are good, but I just don't see him hitting this total at 265.5.
Ben, are you with the under? I think
I'm actually not with the under. Really, I do think Darren Waller. I do expect Darren Waller to play. Obviously, he's questionable right now, but I do think that's going to allow a little bit of things to open up underneath, especially for Hunter Renfrow. So I do think those two guys in the fold. We're going to see some successful passing situations from Derek Carr specifically. I do expect this game to probably go over the 49-point total as well. And I do think the only way that the Raiders are probably going to do that is if Derek Carr goes over his passing yards prop. So I actually kind of lean in the opposite direction on that particular prop, but I'm not going to agree with I'm not going to disagree with any other ones that Andrew Erickson says. I can't go against the prop profit too often here.
Right. I mean, we just
first
started
inaugural podcast. Right.
I know. Poor Andrew. We're just like, Ben's fading him. Just don't listen to anything that Andrew says. That's hilarious. But I will say the Chargers are allowing just 224.5 passing yards per game this year, which is the 13th fewest. And I don't know, Ben, I'm going to lean with Andrew on this one.
All right.
Just because it's the first time on the podcast, I think it's going to go well. But Ben, you also you liked Hunter Renfrow. You liked his over reception. So I feel like that ties in with your Derek Carr over.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, plus 111 point, price right now for Hunter Renfrow. I think some of that baked in is obviously the expectation that Darren Waller does come back, but he has been the guy in this passing offense for the Las Vegas Raiders. I do think, the matchup with Chris Harris Jr. For the Chargers is a little bit of a concern, but I do think either Renfrow or Waller are going to be able to open up some things in this passing game. So I like Renfrow, especially given his, recent target volume. Obviously that's going to change a little bit here on Sunday night, but I expect him to get, enough targets in order to go over his reception prop. Obviously some low A-dot throws I think are going to be headed in his direction. I think if he does, plus price is not a bad spot for him on Sunday night for sure.
Is there any news you guys are watching for this game? Like player news, obviously, that if you see this guy is out or whomever could be out, that you may change some of your minds on this or not really? Is it just Waller?
It's mainly just Waller from my perspective. I do think, obviously Josh Jacobs is questionable as well. I expect both those guys to be able to go from the Las Vegas Raiders, but if they don't, some things are definitely going to be changing in the rushing, share perspective as well. But it's going to be tough if either one of those guys ends up not being able to be on the right side of questionable here on Sunday night.
And Andrew, you like the under for Bryan Edwards too. That one right now is at 20.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very low number because the standards are not set very high when it comes to Bryan Edwards. And again, like some of these receivers, Bryan Edwards, Jalen Reagor, you just keep pounding the unders on these guys. They just don't deliver. Like they just don't get receptions. They don't get targeted. And, this actually plays into Waller coming back. That's just another target that could potentially work away from Bryan Edwards, who could now be, at best case scenario, he's like the fifth passing game option. He's running less routes than Hunter Renfrow, and Zay Jones has kind of taken over as the number 2 receiver behind Hunter Renfrow. Waller's coming back. They also use Deshaun Jackson as a deep threat. And you have Josh Jacobs also involved in the passing game. I mean, Bryan Edwards has averaged fewer than 3 targets per game since week 9, and he's averaging 1.5 catches per game. So basically, I'm just betting that, he catches 1 pass and he doesn't catch the long one. And I think that's a good bet to make more often than not, especially on these just really volatile, deep threat receivers like Bryan Edwards, who also has a really tough wide receiver cornerback matchup. So I'm going to go down on Bryan Edwards.
I like that. I kind of want to know, what do you guys think this game comes down to? Like, what do you guys think the outcome of this game is?
So I guess I'll start a little bit. I actually expect the Raiders to probably start off early, have a little bit of a lead, and then it's going to be the question of can Justin Herbert kind of take the Chargers back. I know that's probably not the popular narrative based on where the spread is actually right now, but that's kind of how I see it playing out. I do agree with Andrew quite a bit. I do think, Bryan Edwards hasn't necessarily been involved whatsoever really, and the expectation for him to actually catch that deep ball is probably a pretty good bet on the under. So I like that one quite a bit, but I think they're going to be successful here offensively a little bit. I do think it's going to take a little bit for the Chargers to probably get involved offensively in this matchup. So I expect the Raiders to start off hot early, and then we'll see if the Chargers can maybe come back out and, sneak away a victory here on Sunday night. Okay.
So what was your answer, the Chargers?
I'm leaning more towards the Raiders, to be honest with you. I like their plus price on the money line. I think that is probably the correct bet here on Sunday night.
Okay. See, Andrew was looking at you too, like, okay, what's
this guy saying?
He's like, this is a good maneuver. Yeah, there's a good maneuver. Andrew, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to look back at this game and be like, man, Justin Herbert did everything right, and for some reason, Chargers, of course, like they do, it just. Things happen. So yeah, I guess I'm going to lean on the Raiders side as well. I mean, the Chargers do these, like Justin Herbert, I think is just clearly the best player, playing in this game.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like there's going to be, this is a weird week already, in week 18, weird stuff is going to happen. And we just I'll go with the Raiders.
Don't worry. I'll send you this video tomorrow, after the game's over and be like, nice job, guys. Like you guys are both wrong. No. All right. Well, then let's move on. I love any other ones from this Sunday night game that you guys want to talk about. Any other props that you like that you're kind of watching?
One that I am watching a little bit, I do like Justin Herbert under 0.5 interceptions. Obviously, that doesn't play into the Raiders potentially winning outright, but I do think he's going to have a clean game. Obviously, he has a little bit of poor turnover play luck happening so far here in 2021. I think that corrects a little bit, and I do think his play under pressure is probably going to be pretty good here against a front seven from the Raiders that has gotten pressure in a really lot of creative ways. But I still think he's probably going to have a clean game. So at a -111 price, I do like him to finish without an interception here on Sunday Night Football. So that's my last real favorite player prop bet for sure. So I
can't fade that one with you because I went against you when they were playing the Broncos, and I don't know why. For whatever reason, I thought that the Broncos defense was going to come away with something, and they didn't. So I'm with you on that one. I'm with you. All right, well, let's move on to like the other game that is going to be really good, and that is the Rams, and they're headed to the playoffs for the fourth time in 5 seasons under Sean McVay. They can clinch the NFC West title if they can snap their, skid that they have against these 49ers. And they can win the division too if my Seahawks guys upset the Arizona Cardinals. So we're really hoping for that. But something, Ben, that you like, or a prop that you like, is Elijah Mitchell under 65.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, definitely. I do think his week 17 performance is hiding a little bit of a, bad usage situation for him personally. I do think he was right at 56% of the offensive snaps played. I think he was at 58% of the rush attempts. So it is a little bit more of a committee-based backfield than what people want to give it credit for against a team that is much better stopping the run in the Los Angeles Rams versus what they were facing last week against the Houston Texans. I do think he's going to struggle a little bit more. So I don't think game script is going to help him here very much as well. So I do think him going under, roughly 65.5 rushing yards is probably a pretty safe bet here in the 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock hour of the NFL slate for sure. So
Andrew, you gonna jump on that with them? Maybe. I don't know. Andrew, what do you see this game? What do you see this game looking like? I guess like game script for this one is just as important as the Sunday night game, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Elijah Mitchell is he does get a ton of volume. So I get that the matchup is definitely tougher. Gets a tougher run defense, but if the guy gets like 25 carries, like he averages 3 yards per carry and he's over it. So probably something I will stay away from.
Wow, you guys just like usually Ben and I are like, yes,
we're going to battle. That's what we brought Andrew in for, right?
That's true.
A little bit of a negative
I like it. Sure. I will say, Ben, in your article though, you did say like if the 49ers fall behind early, right, and they're forced to try and get themselves back into that game, then his production will come through the air.
Right.
And so that is something you're watching.
Right, definitely. And I agree with Andrew, like his volume has been pretty consistent. I just don't necessarily buy into it being where it was at early on in the season. So if he's only at like a 60%, team rush attempt share, especially if the 49ers are playing from behind in this matchup, there's just no way from my perspective that he goes over his rushing yards total. So that's why I'm leaning in that direction. Maybe if the 49ers jump out to an early lead, that's, not actually going to happen. Maybe if they don't necessarily mix in some other guys as much as I'm anticipating, that doesn't happen either. But I think this is a safe enough bet in the majority of outcomes to the point where he's probably going to fall under this rushing yards number. So.
Okay. All right. Andrew, do you like anytime touchdown scores? May I interest you in an anytime touchdown score?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What if I said Deebo Samuel in this game? I found him at plus 150, and it kind of ties into what you guys were talking about because when he played in week 10, right, he got 133 total yards and 2 touchdowns in week 10. And I think that even with Elijah Mitchell's likely return, like he could get those rushing numbers, and he's become a huge part of this offense that I think that they're going to need him, and they're going to want to continue to see him and potentially get him into the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, Deebo Samuel has like 7 rushing touchdowns this year, just like random.
Exactly.
Like, I'm looking at like, who's like, touchdown regression candidates for next year. And I'm like, oh yeah, like Deebo has like 7 touchdowns on like 40 carries, which again sticks out like a sore thumb, but it's because they just use him so much near the red zone. His target share has gotten back up because now they have Mitchell in the backfield. They don't actually have to use him more at running back, but they still do. And they use him in these critical situations. So, I mean, like he's with the way that he is used so often, and he's also game script proof. So if they do fall behind, more passes for Deebo instead of rushing attempts. So I like that one for Deebo.
There we go. Ben, see, I don't know. Like Andrew and I are on the same page here.
Right. I'm the naysayer here. I'm sorry. We'll see who ends up in the black, I guess. In week 18, but it's a weird week in general for sure.
It is. Andrew, I want to go to a couple of yours too that you sent us earlier before we recorded. And the first one is Tyler Higbee under 4 receptions.
Yeah. So Tyler Higbee is one of these tight ends that he runs a lot of routes, but he doesn't always get targeted. So I call them the cardio kings. So they just, they're running routes. They're just, working up a sweat, but then they just don't ever get targeted. And it's because guys like Cooper Kupp are on the field. Odell Beckham's on the field. Van Jefferson's on the field. It's just hard for him to get a lot of targets when he's competing with, more wide receivers. So, he's been more involved over the last couple of weeks, but I think that he's had a couple of decent matchups. This matchup doesn't really work for him. So for the 49ers, 5th and fewest catches allowed to tight ends this season at 3.7. Last time he played the 49ers, he went 3 for 20. And, use PFF's player props tool. I use it all the time to kind of check and see like where the tool is kind of guiding me with some players. And it gives a 21% edge to the under on Tyler Higbee under 4 receptions. So whenever the math backs up my analysis, it's something I'd like to definitely double down on.
Yeah, I'm not going against the math. I don't know. Wait, I feel like in PFF, you can't go against the math, right, Ben? I don't know.
Never go against the math at PFF for sure, right?
Exactly. Well, you did have another one under 4 receptions too for Marvin Jones. Are you thinking in the same way for this prop with him?
Yeah, I mean, Marvin Jones, I think he's a player I've repeatedly taken unders on like basically all season because he just plays in such an inefficient passing game with Trevor Lawrence. Like you never really know what you're going to get. I know last week I was on the under on his receiving yards prop. He had 2 catches for 46 yards. Of course, the line was at 45 and a half. Right. Just, just another day at the office for Andrew. But I mean, he's gone over 4 receptions twice since week 9, and it was against the Titans and the Texans. So 2 of the, less stellar secondaries. Now, he's held to 2 for 35 last time he played the Colts. It's a really, really bad wide receiver cornerback matchup. That's another thing that you can look at when you're looking at receivers. Just these boomer bust guys, especially when they don't have a good matchup, it's just not a good spot for him. 4 receptions. It's just a lot. Like Trevor Lawrence has to complete 5 accurate passes to Marvin Jones for you to lose this bet. And I just feel like that's a long shot to happen with how Trevor Lawrence has played this year. So, and again, also the player props tool agrees with me, 22% edge on under Marvin Jones, under 4 receptions.
Perfect. We can't go against our own tools. So pff.com/betting though, guys, is where you can find everything that Andrew's talking about. And it's been, at least for me and learning it and coming into this, it's been a savior. So that has been nice. And Ben, of course, teaching me everything. But I'll go on to the next one. And that is the one and only Jonathan Taylor. And I think, Andrew, you also put this one in. I think this was all a prop that all 3 of us were looking at. And that is him to go over 22 and a half carries. And I think he failed to reach 20 carries in his first 9 games of the season, and it has been tried and true ever since. He's hit 20 or more in 6 of his last 7. This one feels right, but Ben, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's you can find it at 21 and a half as well. He's been over basically in 10 of 50 games so far this year. All 3 of his last games, he's gone over by significant margins. So if you expect them to, potentially push the envelope a little bit, especially if he's getting near some of these incentive situations, which everyone wants to talk about in week 18, I do think this is a smash spot, kind of up there with, the Cooper Kupp plays that everyone's basically talking about as well. So I like Jonathan Taylor over 22.5 rushing attempts quite a bit. I also think he's going to be heavily involved from a rushing yardage perspective. So if you're looking at, like over 115.5, I think that's a great spot as well. And I do think that the Colts minus 15 and a half are definitely playable on the spread as well here in week 18. So
Andrew, same page, I'm hoping.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not fading Jonathan Taylor against the Texans. It's like one of those spots where, you just get buried and it's like, hey, right. If he doesn't hit it, whatever, I'll take my L, but I'm not fading Jonathan Taylor.
No, I would agree. I know the Colts are 15-point favorites right now, Ben?
15 and a half. Yeah. It's bouncing around a little bit. And PFF's, betting model does actually like the Colts in that situation, which I do think is like the widest spread that we've liked a favorite here in the last 4 years that we've been modeling some of these spreads. So I do think that one definitely pops out as far as decent play from a value perspective for sure.
But the only thing you're watching with this one, Ben, and you said it is, if they go up by a large margin, right? And then you're thinking, they're going to pull them.
And I do think he'll probably still go over his rushing yardage number in that situation. He just won't get up to the 20, 25 carry threshold because they're up by 4 touchdowns or something like that early on. So we'll see. It is kind of scary to maybe play some of the, receiving yardage unders for Marvin Jones, even, Trevor Lawrence and those sorts of things if you don't think they're actually going to perform to keep this game close enough. But I think a lot of that is probably going to be already baked in. So I do think he'll probably get over his, rushing carry number here relatively easily, and I do think his rushing yardage number is an easy bet as well. So
perfect. I think this next one, and this is, I was excited when I read it from Andrew, and I think this one is my favorite one on Sunday, but that is Michael Carter to go over 35 and a half rushing yards. I don't know why, but once I saw it on the rundown, I looked into it. I was like, this is a good one.
I mean, when Mike Davis hits 42 rushing yards in the same spot, come on, man. Mike Davis is the guy we all made fun of in fantasy football. You were basically a fish if you drafted Mike Davis in fantasy. But yeah, I mean, just the line is too low. That's the thing that I'm looking at, with a lot of these lines, especially, most of mine have been unders, but in this particular case, I want to go over because it's 35 and a half rushing yards. I mean, Bills have been, their biggest weakness is being attacked on the ground. We know that there are some weather concerns in this game. It's supposed to be snow. It's supposed to be colder. So I can't imagine that Zach Wilson isn't necessarily going to be going out, slinging the ball on the road. The Bills have allowed the third most rushing yards since week 11, 3.3 yards after contact. Michael Carter hit this over last week and he didn't even play the most of the game. He got knocked out with a concussion. And I remember playing him in DFS and I saw him rip off a big run. I'm like, oh my God, it worked. The process was right as my bring back. And then he obviously got knocked out of the game, but he still hit that rushing prop. And if you just look at, he's done when he's been healthy, he's gone over 35 and a half rushing yards in 9 straight games, when he's been fully healthy. And that doesn't even include last week where he wasn't even healthy and he still got over it. So I know there's concern about Tevin Coleman, but they're going to run the football and 35 and a half rushing yards, even if he is splitting some work with Tevin Coleman, it's just still not high enough for me to, shy away.
Ben?
I mean, yeah, he played 71% of the snaps, offensive snaps last week, had 48, roughly 50% of the rushing attempts. So yeah, I mean, he's back. As long as he doesn't get hurt, I do think this is an easy bet here. I definitely like this one quite a bit. So
and this is a question I kind of have being newer to this, but as you guys are betting and it's week 18 and it's kind of, there's a ton of question marks around week 18 and kind of what's going on. Are you guys looking at games with teams like the Jets are playing for nothing? The Jets have nothing to play for in this game, but are you guys going into some of these games with teams that maybe don't have as much to play for and looking for props like this where things may be priced too low or anything like that?
I definitely think there is a case for it, and especially when it's a guy that is a rookie or a first year or second year player that you do think is probably going to at least get some more opportunities than what he would typically, or versus a veteran player like Tevin Coleman. I do think that we're going to want, the Jets are going to want to see what they have in Michael Carter. So I do think targeting him in this sort of situation in week 18 in a nothing sort of spot is definitely the correct betting approach here for player props. Definitely.
Okay. Andrew's I know. Andrew's I
already thought.
I still I don't know. I'm always just so driven by the numbers for the most part. I try not to focus on the players as much. I try to look at the lines themselves. That's why Michael Carter was gravitated towards him. I was really looking at the number. Okay, 35 and a half rushing yards. That's just really low for a starting running back. Okay, now what's the situation with the Jets? Well, Jets aren't playing for anything, but they have a rookie that they want to continue to get work in. If anything, it makes more sense for them not to use Tevin Coleman. Why use this veteran guy in week 18? That doesn't make any sense. He's going to be freezing in Buffalo. Tevin Coleman doesn't want that. Give it to Michael Carter.
Well, there we go. Andrew, something we do on this podcast that we just have lived by since we started doing the streams on Twitter and up until now is the quarterback rushing prop. We've lived for the quarterback rushing prop. It has sent us when we've lost everything else. We at least have the quarterback rushing prop to fall back on. Ben, I have to bring this up because you like Taysom Hill's under 50.5 rushing yards on Sunday.
I
had to bring it up.
I think it's like the lowest value rushing prop that we have value on from the player props tool. So there are some other ones that I do think are pretty decent spot. One that I probably missed earlier on Sunday Night Football, but Derek Carr over 6.5 rushing yards, minus 123 price. He hasn't necessarily been overly involved from a rushing perspective in that particular offense, but if the Chargers can get a little bit of pressure, I do like that one quite a bit. I also like maybe Ryan Tannehill if they have trouble putting away Houston at 10.5 rushing yards as well. But Taysom Hill, I think that he's going to have to beat the Atlanta Falcons through the air. Obviously, they have AJ Terrell at cornerback, but other than that, really poor secondary. So if the Saints are going to make the playoffs and potentially make some noise in the playoffs, they're going to need to do it with Taysom Hill potentially throwing it to the air. So I do think he is going to take a step back. 50.5 just seems like a really high number for a guy that hasn't gone over in the past 2 games. He has been a little bit more involved from a rushing perspective, but I still think he's probably going to fall short of this number. So I like those 3 from a quarterback rushing perspective here in week 18.
Long live. We couldn't Andrew, we couldn't finish out. Yeah, you couldn't finish out week 18 without any. Do you have any that you like, Andrew? I got to ask.
Well, what's Tom Brady's rushing yards?
1.5 rushing yards, minus 105 price though. I mean, it's enticed us before. I'm going to say that much. So.
Oh, it has.
I feel like he's been hitting the overs on those a decent amount, especially because he has the quarterback sneak thing. I know that he's been running around a little bit more, and I don't know. I think we're gonna see a fired up Bucs offense and kind of stick it to Antonio Brown and be like, we don't need you. We can still score 40 points against Carolina Panthers, and Brady can do his first down fist pump thing because the Bucs have to show up this week.
I love this. So now we're going Tom 1.5.
Tom, I'm riding it. I'm riding that. I've already bet it now. Yeah. I'm gonna get it on my phone right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna right when we're done with this, I'm getting on. So that's awesome. Andrew, Ben, anything else you want to leave with? Any other things you're kind of looking at? Anything you want to leave week 18? People need to know.
I don't know. I mean, check out the props tool. That's all we can say, I guess, at this point, right? So,
Andrew, any infinite knowledge you want to leave us with?
Just watch out for, pay attention to the news. That's what I would say. Pay attention to the news, pay attention to the weather, 2 things, especially in Buffalo, where just weather is always just all over the place. So that's it.
Awesome. Well, guys, pff.com/betting. That is where you can find all the player props tools, all of the bets that we just talked about too, all of Ben Brown's articles. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. It was awesome to have you on this regular season finale. Ben, as always, and everyone, good luck.